Today we're diving into a bizarre 19th century mystery about quite possibly the most psychopathic woman in history you've probably never even heard of. You know, when we think of notorious historical killers, our minds usually jump straight to those names pop culture repeats endlessly. But history hides predators who are far more patient, far more charming, and honestly, far more terrifying, simply because they hid right in plain sight. So let's unravel the deeply disturbing story of Gesche Gottfried.
Why do tourists spit on a random cobblestone in Bremen, Germany? Well, this simple question unravels a truly chilling story. If you take a stroll through the historic streets of Bremen today, right in front of the Grand Cathedral, you're going to see a tiny black basalt stone embedded in the ground. And you'll see locals and tourists stop, look down, spit on it, and just keep walking. It's wild. This bizarre tradition marks the exact spot where a severed head rolled into the dirt on a gray April morning back in 1831. But to understand why the city harbors such permanent disgust nearly 200 years later, we really have to look at who this woman pretended to be.
To really grasp her deception, we have to constantly contrast how the city viewed Gesche against the dark, hidden reality of her crimes. Let's compare the two. On one hand, to the people of Bremen, she was the angel, pious, gentle, a devoted caregiver, a living saint. She was beautiful, fiercely dedicated to her community, and whenever someone fell sick, she was the very first to arrive at their bedside with warm soup and clean bandages. They literally called her the Angel of Bremen. But the truth? The truth is that she was a cold, calculating mass murderer. Every single person she nursed was dying specifically because of what she had cheerfully slipped into their breakfast that morning. For 15 straight years, she basically turned murder into an art form.
Section 1. The Mask of Sanity. Now, building from her early childhood, Gesche learned how to weaponize certain traits. She learned to wear morality like a costume to manipulate her strict parents. Born in 1785 into a working-class household, she wasn't an angel behind closed doors, not even close. She quickly realized a terrifying truth. Society rewards you for who they think you are, not who you actually are. So she became a master of performance. She'd fake this exceptional piety just to soak up adult affection and praise. And when she didn't get what she wanted, she didn't throw tantrums like a normal kid, no. She held cold, silent grudges for months. She would orchestrate strange accidents just to ruin the toys of kids who insulted her. Above all else, she absolutely craved attention, admiration, and total, complete control over her surroundings.
Section 2. The perfect untraceable poison.
Fast forward to 1806. Her first marriage to an abusive alcoholic named Johann Miltenberg was threatening her social standing and her wealth. She needed a way out, but one that preserved her pristine reputation and kept her pockets full. You have to remember, divorce simply wasn't an option in 19th century Germany unless you wanted to face total social ruin. So she turned to Mäusebutter, or mouse butter. This was a common pest control mixture made of animal fat, butter, and a highly lethal dose of arsenic trioxide. It was designed to be spread on bread to kill rats in basements. The crazy part? Anyone could buy this directly over the counter in pharmacies. For just a few copper coins, literally no questions asked, you could buy enough arsenic to wipe out a whole city block. And guess she remembered she had some sitting right there in her pantry.
Now, you might be wondering, how did she get away with using arsenic against 1813 medical science? Well, because of arsenic's unique properties, doctors suspected natural illnesses instead of murder. It was famously known as the king of poisons for a reason. Because it's chemically odorless, a doctor would misdiagnose the symptoms as cholera. Because it's almost completely tasteless, it was easily mistaken for gastric fever. And because it's slow-acting over a period of weeks, doctors just assumed it was acute abdominal inflammation. So when her husband suffered violent vomiting and severe pain, the doctor just blamed his abdomen. This massive medical blind spot allowed Gesche to safely play the weeping, grieving nurse right by his bedside, all while secretly feeding him microdoses of arsenic in his broth until he finally died.
Section 3. Wiping out a family. Her first husband's death in 1813 wasn't just a desperate, one-time solution to an abusive marriage. Actually, it was a dark revelation of absolute power for her, and it sparked a horrifying escalation. Look at the shocking density of this timeline from 1815. She met a wealthy new suitor, but her strict mother and her 3 young dependent children were, in her eyes, in the way. So within just 50 days, she wiped out 3 generations of her own family. In week 1, May 10th, her mother dies after a special meal. Week 2, May 18th, her 6-year-old daughter Adelaide dies. Week 4, June 1st, Her 5-year-old son Heinrich dies, and by week 7, June 22nd, her 3-year-old daughter Johanna is dead. She didn't view her own children as human beings. They were simply financial drains and obstacles to her next marriage.
Okay, you have to be wondering how on earth no one noticed a single household dropping dead one by one, right? Well, it all comes down to the halo effect. This is a psychological phenomenon where a person's positive public traits, like piety and charity, completely blind observers to any negative evidence. Because Gesche was attractive, because she gave to the poor, and wept so beautifully at funerals, nobody could even fathom she was a killer. The whole town wept for her. They cemented her title as the Angel of Bremen and actively sent for her whenever someone else fell ill. They were literally inviting death right through their front doors.
Over the next decade, her addiction to this godlike superiority expanded her victim pool dramatically. Check out the categories of her 15 confirmed victims. We've got 6 biological family members, 3 husbands and suitors, and 6 friends, creditors, and neighbors. After she eliminated her father, her twin brother, and a second husband, she just started targeting absolutely anyone who slightly annoyed her. Literally, if a creditor asked for their loaned money back, or if a friend casually suggested she spend a little less on expensive dresses, she'd just invite them in for a nice, warm cup of coffee laced with Mäusebutter. The killing became completely transactional.
Section 4. The Fatal Mistake.
Eventually, Gesche burned through her wealth and lost her house to massive deaths. And this is where she made her fatal mistake. She recklessly targeted the healthy young family of the home's new owner, Johann Rumpf. But unlike her previous victims, Johann Rumpf was sharp, highly observant. Step 1. His healthy wife suddenly dies of violent cramps. Step 2. Gesche eagerly steps in and volunteers to take over the cooking for the household. But then, everyone else in the house starts getting sick. Step 3. On March 5, 1828, Rumpf spots these strange, sparkling white crystals on a smoked ham in his pantry. He realized it looked a bit like salt, but the texture was way too light, almost like ground chalk. So, step 4, highly suspicious, he scrapes the powder off and secretly takes it straight to a local physician and chemist, Dr. Luce.
Dr. Luce then performs this very simple yet incredibly effective 1828 chemical test. He places the white powder on a hot copper plate. He applies a flame underneath the plate, and instead of melting like salt or sugar would, this substance releases this dense white smoke. Plus, it gives off a strong, unmistakable smell of garlic. Boom! That garlic smell proves it is pure, concentrated arsenic. This single, simple test entirely shattered her perfect 15-year facade, leading directly to her stunning arrest the very next day, right on her 43rd birthday.
15. That is the number of confirmed murders she committed. Oh, and another 15 people she left permanently paralyzed or crippled. Once she was arrested, the city ordered the exhumation of her entire family. And because arsenic is a powerful antimicrobial agent, the poison had literally embalmed their internal organs from the inside out. The bodies were found perfectly preserved. So faced with absolute, undeniable forensic proof, she just coldly dropped the act and confessed to the whole shebang.
During the trial, she gave a quote to the magistrates that is just chilling. She said, "When I saw them suffering, I felt pity for them. I sat by their beds and wept, and my tears were genuine, but I wanted them gone." This exact trial transcript is wild because it proves she didn't kill out of some sudden rage. No, she killed out of a deeply twisted, theatrical need for pity and absolute control. She could literally cry over her dying child while simultaneously planning exactly how she was going to spend their inheritance.
Section 5. Psychology of a monster.
So let's look at the psychopathic profile behind this 15-year reign of terror. It really comes down to how she weaponized empathy. To her, human lives were simply disposable stage props for her own personal theater. Modern psychiatrists look at her as a malignant narcissist, exhibiting symptoms of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. You see, she used extreme emotional compartmentalization. She had this pathological need for reverence, needing to play 2 roles at exactly the same time. First, an omnipotent God holding the power of life and death over a simple breakfast bowl, and second, the tragic beloved angel receiving the unconditional pity of the entire city. She displayed total apathy toward human suffering. She literally watched her own babies suffer agonizing internal burns and organ failure mere inches from her face, and she never once flinched.
On April 21, 1831, she was executed by beheading in front of 35,000 people. It actually ended up being the last public execution in Bremen. Her head was then claimed by medical researchers obsessed with phrenology. They were literally searching her skull for physical bumps or signs of evil. But her dark legacy?
It remains literally embedded in the city's cobblestones today. The spitting stone marks the exact spot of her execution. It's a permanent gesture of civic disgust, where generation after generation continue to spit in total defiance of the woman who so deeply, deeply betrayed their trust.
The story of Gesche Gottfried forces us to reconsider the comforting lies we tell ourselves about what evil truly looks like. We desperately want to believe that monsters look unhinged, that they lurk in dark, shadowy corners. But the deadliest predator in Bremen was the person bringing warm soup to the sick and crying the loudest at the funerals. So it leaves us with this one deeply unsettling thought. If the deadliest monsters hide behind warm smiles and gentle hands, who prepared your dinner tonight?
Please like and subscribe.